The world economy is doing relatively well these days, but that is riding on the dividends of innovation and globalization over the past few decades. But if every country wants to be the biggest winner all the time in everything, a trade war could ensue. But sanctions and tariffs, certainly outdated ideas which led to one of the biggest recessions of the last century, have apparently been recycled by some as the magic tools. It's like the emperor's new clothes combined with self-centered geopolitics. So who will be ultimately responsible for the consequences? I asked Borge Brende, who is the former foreign minister from Norway, who is now the president of the World Economic Forum. When he took time out of his busy schedule for an interview during a whirlwind visit to China, Mr. Brende was straightforward about his thoughts. Improve the state of the world, that's what the World Economic Forum has been committing to for decades. Well, it seems that the state of the world is changing. I wonder, from your perspective, how dangerous is a trade war worldwide?
It is very important to continue to trade with each other. That has also been the basis of all the welfare and also the growth that we have seen during the last decades. But protectionism related to trade can seriously slow down the growth. That's why we also have to avoid this, because we all need the growth to create the jobs and opportunities for young people that is necessary for the years to come.
But you know, the concept is easy to understand. And yet when it comes to practice, you see increasingly countries in different parts of the world to one another putting on tariffs as one of the ways. We all know tariffs is stupid because everybody's going to lose in this war, quote unquote, and yet that is where things are going.
So I think we have to start with where we currently stand. Even with the measures that are taken in the last months, we have never had these low tariffs ever in the history. But we also have to be aware of the fact that trade is not what it used to be, in the sense that today we are all part of the global value chain. So if you produce something, for example, in Switzerland, where the World Economic Forum is based, and you say made in Switzerland, probably 80% of the components in that product comes from other countries. So if you launch protectionist measures against other countries, you can also be hurting your own companies in many ways, because we're all in the same boat.
They don't care what you just said. I mean, global growth. Who cares about that? They want to have one country thrive, no matter what is happening to the rest of the world.
Since 1990, the world has gone through an incredible development. And this could not have happened if we did not trade with each other. A prerequisite and a driving piece of this is that each country can then produce and export and use its comparative advantages. And this has also been the kind of the very central piece of the success. So why change a success recipe? I think there is a big risk if we move away from a win-win thinking, but that doesn't mean that we don't have to look into some of the trade regulations. I think different countries also have sent signals that they are willing to go into a discussion on details in WTO, also how regional trade agreements can function, also bilateral trade. But we shouldn't rock the boat.
The World Economic Forum has been working with China since the very beginning of China's reform and opening up. 1979, wow, that's very impressive. This year marks 40th anniversary of China's reform and opening up. Many wonder, how does your organization see the ups and downs, the different development, the faster, slower speed from time to time of China's reform and opening up process?
So it's correct that our founder and executive chairman, Klaus Schwab, he visited China back in 1979, and that was also to support the opening up process initiated by then leader Deng Xiaoping. And since then, we have been working very closely with China. I would say that China's path to development is very historic. We've never seen a country develop this fast as China has done during the 2-3 last decades.
At different times, there are different challenges. Obviously, a country like China, which is gigantic, is facing. For example, 1979 is about whether or not to have reform and opening up.
Yeah.
2001, when China entered into the WTO, is about how much open you want to be and how much you want to use the international rules to change the things within the country. And now, 17 years already since China's entry to the WTO, many wondered, how do you, like the World Economic Forum, witness China's growth as a result of that?
China entering the world economy in that to also be part of the WTO open up big opportunities for China for building an export industry, but also opens up huge opportunities for other countries. And I don't think we should forget that. It's 1.4 billion people. It's one of the largest markets in the world, if not the largest.
It is the largest market.
When it comes to the population, it definitely is the largest market, and grow. The consumption is also increasing. So I think there are big opportunities. But of course, when China entered the WTO in 2001, it was definitely a developing country. Today, China is, some provinces are still developing and needs development, but other places in China is some of the more advanced in the world.
Recently, you probably have noticed, Mr. Bender, that the Chinese side has once again put out a negative list, meaning what areas foreign investors will have the access to the Chinese industries. For example, about automotive industry, about aircraft, power grid, about some of the other insurance as well. So is this speed satisfying from your perspective as a platform for multilateral dialogue to you and to the others? How is China being transformed by this process and by this speed?
Chinese leadership has taken many important steps also the last months when it comes to opening up the Chinese market. I think this is also showing the willingness to be flexible. We have to also remember, though, that when China became a member of the World Trade Organization in 2001, it was a different China than today. If you open up all your market from the beginning, it's also hard to develop the competences yourself. So the gradual approach that China has shown has also benefited China. But also look at the United States of America. It's not that the US has not grown and have not seen results based on the world order that we currently enjoy. The US is still doing well. I think we now have to be very aware of the fact that we need also to change, but we should not repair what is not broken. And what is not broken, I think, is the system how we trade and deal and cooperate with each others.
Of course, within the system, there are what some consider as winners and losers, not just among countries, but also among different people, different communities within the country. Multinational companies might be the benefiter, and yet people are saying low wages workers might be the loser. Is there a solution to this?
What we have seen during the last decades is that there has been a tremendous new situation when it comes to opportunities for people. Hundreds of millions of people have grown out of poverty. So if you look at it in a global sense, this is quite historic. But inside some countries, and especially in some industrialized countries, we see that the competition from the new economies has then been very tough for some traditional
manufacturing sector, for example.
Manufacturing sector workers and blue-collar workers. But what we have seen lately, though, with the unemployment rate, for example, falling so dramatically as in the US, also the salaries and wages for unskilled workers have increased. So I think it is very crucial that there are jobs available, and there should be good jobs that are okay paid for everyone. But
Exactly.
This is a very important topic because it's about the contract, the social contract, also in the social market economy, that everyone has to be given a real chance, and the differences should not increase further.
Don't repair what's not broken, but what can we do to improve it? Will innovation and new technologies do the job? That is a question many seek an answer to these days, including the World Economic Forum. I asked Mr. Brenda about that too in our conversation, as WEF takes up the topic every year through its annual meeting in the summer, also known as Summer Davos. He tried to answer my question by going back to the history of the first Industrial Revolution.
The spinner, when the first Industrial Revolution started in the United Kingdom,
Yes.
It took the spinner 120 years to move out from Europe.
Oh my God.
Because it was no globalization. And it gave, of course, Europe also an edge for many years. In 2007, we saw the first iPhone being produced. And today there are 2 billion iPhones in the world. So things are changing so much faster. And we're seeing, for example, the algorithms that are behind artificial intelligence. We see the robots that can do stuff that humans could do before in a very cost-effective way. This is changing the way we produce also with the 3D printing and all this. And if you're not on top of these new technologies, you will lose out.
Innovation should be without borders. And yet, geopolitical situations is about setting up the borders as much as possible. So will that eventually become the most important conflict that we're likely to see?
I think there is a competition between companies today that is very tough on new technologies. There will also be indirectly a competition between nations who are the most attractive one when it comes to being the home base for these companies. But borders in the traditional sense here, I don't believe in, because if you look at, for example, iPhone today, even if it's produced in one country, 80% of the components can be from a different country. We so much rely on each other, and this global value chain piece is often forgotten, I think, when we discuss trade.
Recently, World Economic Forum have been doing some research about driverless cars, suggesting that the current stage of driverless cars development, when continues, is likely to contribute to even more city center gridlock. So this is a big problem, because driverless cars, one of the debates for it is that it's going to ease the traffic. But now it seems that it is going the other way around. So this is about one example about how technologies in the stages of being created and improved is likely to serve the eventual purpose why these technologies should be welcomed at all. People wonder what will be the result and whether the discussions will really have an impact on the policy making, having an impact on the production side.
It's a good observation. I think if there are too many cars in a city, it's too many cars even if they're self-driven, you know. But what we will have to hope for is that visionary leaders will bring bring the necessary infrastructure when it comes to public transportation, fast trains, as we're seeing, speed trains, as we're seeing in China, but also then underground communication that is important. So I think that technology can also is the prerequisite for leapfrogging moving forward. Because today we see that, for example, the price of solar renewable has fallen to 1/10 of what it was 10 years ago. So no, solar is very competitive in many markets. And thank you, China, that has been really driving the price down because there's no mass production. It shows that competition is also a very good thing. Because of the fierce competition, you're driving down the prices, and what is the result? More people can have access to electricity, it's cheaper, and it's more renewable. That is one of the fortunate things with an open trade system where you compete.
As long as competition does not create fear, but rather improvement.
Yeah, and it has to be a level playing field. It has to be fair, and it has to be inclusive. But let's not let the geopolitics interfere negatively when it comes to the system. It has delivered so much welfare for many people in the world.
Mr. Brenda, after talking to you, I think you have a lot of topics on your hand already for the summer Davos, coming very soon, 2 months from now.
Yeah, we will have an amazing summer Davos in China, and the interest from all the startups and entrepreneurs and global CEOs is very high. It still looks good, the global economy, but are we preparing ourselves? No. For what is around the next corner. If you see slower economic growth, we need now to build the necessary firepower to fight back. When there is nice weather, like we are seeing now in the world economy, that's the time to repair the roof and not tear part of the roof off. That would be my challenge to world leaders meeting also in Tianjin.
Thank you so much, Mr. Brenda, for being with us.
Thank you for
really
inviting
appreciate
me.
it.
Thank you for inviting me.